The search function is very similar to find, just that it has a few additional features. So let's understand how the search function can be used and when to use them. So here I have an employee ID column, and then I can see that it has a few junk characters both on the left as well as the right. But then the employee ID, the first character, which is a letter, is not necessarily in the same case. So I have it written in small letters, even in capital letters. So if you want to search for information that is not case sensitive, that is when you would use the search function. So very similar to how we used find, I will start using the search function to find out the starting position of my employee ID. So here, the first thing it asks is, what is it that I want to find? So I want to find the letter A because I know that's how my employee ID starts. And where do I want to find it in? I want to find it in B3. Oh, let's just fix that. Okay. Now, and then the optional parameter is the starting number. So by default, the starting number is always 1. So I wouldn't want to change that. I always want to keep searching or start the search from character position 1 in the cell. So I leave it as it is. So there you go. So now I'm getting the result as 5, which in this case is correct. I have 3 junk characters, 3 hash symbols, hash characters, followed by a space, and the 5th character is the letter A. And what you would notice here is I used capital letter A here, and it was still able to find out the starting position of small letter A. So as I mentioned, search is not case sensitive, right? So it is not case sensitive. So that is one thing that you should remember. And now if I were to drag this down, it works perfectly, right? So, okay, in this particular case, all of them start from the position 5. So if I were to make some changes here, let me add a few more junk characters, it retrieves the changed position. Correct. So this is when you would want to, extract information when it is not case sensitive, right? So let's say your employee ID has more characters in this manner, right? So this would not be the right way to go about it. Then I would use find if I want to find out the correct case, right? So depending on how your data is, I would use the relevant find or the search function, right? Okay. Now, since I've actually found out the starting position, I'm going to cut out this formula and I'm going to use it with the mid function. So the mid function, I will provide the text, which is B3, the starting number, which I'm not going to provide it directly. I'm going to use the result of the search function. I'm going to get out of this equal to sign, and then the number of characters. So we know the employee ID is 5 characters long, and then I will do this. So it extracts the information in exactly the same way that it is, typed in the employee ID column, correct? So this is how I would use the search function to extract information, right? Along with the mid function. So we're going to take one more example as to how we could use the search function, right? So here we have the wildcards. Now, what do we mean by this? So search function also works with wildcards. So to understand this better, let's take a scenario. So we have a remarks column, and we can see that it basically talks about work being completed on a specific day. But each of them have been written in a different way altogether, right? So the text that has been used, and some places the month is written in full, right? So let's say our requirement is to extract all of them which contain Feb 2020, right? So I can't just simply say Feb 2020 because there are other pieces of information as well between them, because you have the dates as well. There are a couple of blank characters as well, and it is not the same everywhere. So basically, what would be extracted are these two cells, correct? Because it contains Feb as well as 2020. So in such a scenario is where you would use the wildcard character with the search function. So when we use the function, it will be a lot more clear to understand. So when I use the search function, it asks me what is the text that I need to find. So I'll say Feb 2020. So you do remember that the search function is not case sensitive, so I could write it this way. So now it is not going to extract anything if I write it exactly as Feb 2020, right? So the wildcard character that I would use here is the star symbol or the asterisk symbol. So the asterisk symbol means any number of characters between Feb and 2020. So asterisk character means any number of characters. So that is right. We should search for Feb and 2020, and between that, any number of characters are permitted. Okay, perfect. So we got that sorted. Now, where do we want to search for this? In cell B3. And I'm not going to give a starting number because I want to start from character position 1. And there you go. I got a result saying that from character position 13 is where I would be able to extract the month and the remaining details. Correct? So if I were to drag it down, okay, just sort this out. Okay, so I get an error for two of the cells because it doesn't retrieve what we were trying to search, but it does do that for the cells that we were referring to, right? So even if the month was written in full, it was still able to fetch the information, correct? So let me just even go and tweak this a little bit. Let me just say feb dot, right? Even then it works perfectly, right? So it doesn't really matter. Now we need to extract the information as well. So what we'll do is we'll combine it with the mid function. So let's cut out this formula and then we'll use the mid function where we'll provide the text, which is B3, and the starting number is the result of the search function, and then we have to provide the number of characters. So this is the tricky part because the way how the month, date, and year is written is different in each of the cells, right? So we don't know how many characters to actually pick up. So if you're not really sure how many characters to pick up, we can actually provide a large number as well. So in this particular case, I'm providing a large number, 100. So you can provide a large number depending on the kind of data that is stored in the cells, right? So I'm putting a number like 100 because we can't leave it blank because it is a mandatory parameter. So now look at this, it fetches exactly what I was looking for, and there you go, right? So we can also get rid of these value errors. So if I want, what I could do is I can use another function called if error, which we'll be exploring in the later lessons as well. So if there is an error message, replace it with nothing, right? So I drag it down. So don't worry about the if error function. We'll anyway be exploring it later, right? So this is how I would use a combination of the search and mid function using the wildcard, right? So this is when you want to extract information. But let's say your requirement is not to extract information, but instead to filter the content. So if your requirement is only to filter the existing column, then I wouldn't require to use any function. I can just use the filter here, which is contains, and I can just say web wildcard 2020, right? So it filters the content even using the wildcard. So it totally depends on what your requirement is. If your requirement is to extract the information, that I can use these functions. But if it is to filter an existing column, I can use the filter option. But in both these places, the wildcard will work perfectly.